Dear listeners, welcome back to this wonderful episode again. Today we have another guest here from a faraway land. The funny thing about this story is that today here in Kenya it is very sunny, extremely sunny, with a lot of dust. So I'm wiping dust off the window panes and all that. But our guest here, they're experiencing snow. How is the wonder of God? With us today, we have a guest. She's very wonderful from a very far away land again, as I mentioned. Her name is Miss Jessica Morris. Miss Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Samuel. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes, I'm very glad to have you on board. Please do tell us something about yourself. Mention the snow, and then we can pick it up from there. We are happy to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. And it's always a weird thing to say, to talk about myself a little bit, because the old me, back in the day when I was living a life that isn't so impressive, really wanted people to know her. She was very interested in having people revere her and applaud her and all that kind of stuff. And today I'm sort of like, yeah, I don't like that so much anymore. But I also know that the best way to get people to Jesus is to tell them about your story with him, And so, to kind of give you the summary version, and then maybe we can go from there. I was born, I'm the fourth child of four children to a United Methodist minister, which is Protestant Christianity. And my mother was a school teacher. And my father was also an alcoholic. And so it was a confusing way to grow up, because he was my minister. He was my dad. I loved him. And he told me very early on in my life that I was a mistake, that my parents only wanted three children. And it took me my entire life. I'm 55 years old now, and it probably took me 50 years to really truly move beyond that. Because it's still there, on occasion. I've done a lot of work on it, but and he said that I'm sure he was in an alcoholic state, and I have forgiven him for that. But it really made me confused about, what did God think of me? And so I always loved Jesus growing up. I felt like Jesus could truly understand me because his dad did some horrible things to him too. That's what I thought in my head, And I guess what I'm trying to get out here is that there was always a spark inside me because of him. There was always a spark inside me that said, no, you're not a mistake. You're not a mistake. I want you here. And even during all my darkest times, because I fell into addiction also, as much as I hated that part of my father, because he was abusive, and very angry and violent. And nobody in the town knew it. We lived in a very small town. Everybody in the town loved him. He was a wonderful minister. I do believe he was called to be a minister. Absolutely. He was very good at it. He was great with people. He just wasn't good with his family. And so it was kind of like a night and day, or Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, that my father was. And um, so getting beyond that stuff, it took me a long time to do that because I fell into addiction and I became, just almost, I was suicidal. I almost died a couple times on my journey. And so, that's, and then I end up going to seminary myself to learn about the Bible. And so, that's how I see God work in people's lives today, as I look out over the people that I offer spiritual direction to, and, that I work with in my recovery from addictions, is that most of the time we don't even know God's doing the work. and he's just like working overtime behind the scenes. And I feel so blessed and so grateful to have, um, I guess, survived through those times where I was not running to God. I was running away from God when I was in my addictions. And I'm just so grateful for, and I used to think I knew for sure, but whether it was guardian angels or God or Jesus or the Holy Spirit or whoever, or all of them, watching over me together, and protecting me to get me to the place where I was able to finally say, I need help. I need someone to help me. And because I had also run away from organized religion, so I had nobody in my life. I mean, my mom was pretty much the only one left who was willing to answer the phone when I called.
Mm.
And so, that really, that kind of, I guess that's a much longer summary than what I thought I would say there, but that's what led me to where I am today. It was just a very long, I got into recovery when I was, from my addictions when I was 29. So about 26 years ago. And in the 26 years since I've been clean, that's where sort of my hair's been blown back by God. And I'm just going, whoa, I mean, because it takes relieving myself of that barrier that's between, that has always been between me and God, which was my addictions, my self-hatred, all those things. Those had to be excavated and removed. And it took a lot of work to do that, but I had to get clean first because I couldn't do the work if I was, either medicated with alcohol or food or whatever else. And so, I'm just really grateful that God led me there or opened my eyes or woke me up, at the age of 29. A lot of people aren't that blessed or lucky or whatever you want to call it to have it happen that early in life. So yeah, so that's kind of the quick summary of, who I am and where I come from.
And well, Miss Jessica, we are privileged to have you here today because today we will learn something from you and from your family. And that thing that we will learn will help me and the listeners navigate through the life situations today, tomorrow, and the days to come. And here you are with an interesting story and something very, very interesting because I will angle some few questions. We'll talk about your parents, your dad, your mom, then we talk about you, and then we will talk about your present now, now that you are born again. But there's something here we can learn from the scene or the scenario with your parents. You have a father. Is your father still alive, if I may ask?
No, he passed away in, 2007.
Oh,
So it's been 19 years. Wow.
it's a
Yeah.
it's a long time. May he rest
Yeah,
in peace.
and
It's a
yeah,
long
and
time.
my mother died in, my mother lived significantly longer. She died in 2024, so it's been 2 years
Two,
since my
two,
mother
two
died.
years. All right, that's fine. But the question I want to angle towards your parents' side is here you are living in a house, you've been born there. When was the first time your dad came and told you that you are not, why you are the last born, right?
Yes.
So when was the first time you heard from your dad, and how old were you when you heard these words that you are not planned for?
It was only one time that I can remember. Okay. And I think that I don't know exactly how old I was. I can remember the scene as if it happened yesterday. It's very clear in my mind. So and he was sitting at the dining room table, and I'm pretty sure it was the end of the day. Like
Yes.
he probably had been out, doing ministerial things, and came home, and he was having a drink before dinner. He did that a lot, where he would sit at the dining room table and have a drink. And My guess is that I was acting goofy because I did act goofy a lot when I was a little kid. And I was probably getting on his nerves.
Yes.
And he just was out with it. He just said it. And I don't know if he was trying to hurt me or make me go away. I don't It doesn't even really matter what he was trying to do, because as an addict myself today, I can look back on it and I know I've said some pretty horrible things to people in my addiction that I really didn't mean, or that I never would have said, otherwise. And the hardest, really, that was very hard to hear.
Yeah.
But what happened after that is I went to my mom, who was in the kitchen, and my mom and I had a really, really good relationship then. I remember, like, she used to, when my siblings would go off to school and I was at home with her, you know, and I had her all to myself,
Yes.
she would sit and watch like Sesame Street with me and
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers. And, and she took me everywhere because I was her baby, and so like I felt really connected to my mom. And I thought, well, I remember thinking in my head, mom will set this straight, and I went in there and I said, daddy just told me that I was a mistake. Is that true? And she didn't say no. She didn't say, yeah, she didn't say no, that's not true. She said, well, he shouldn't have told you that. And she basically was confirming to me that they didn't want to have a fourth baby. But what I heard was, we didn't want you, right? And that, I believe, is when the sort of split happened with me and my mom as well. Even though she still was the one I would always go to, it really kind of like I felt, and I tried to keep this a secret my whole life. Like I didn't want my older siblings to know, because I was afraid if anyone knew, they would discard me, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I will say this: this is the first place where in my life where I can say God, like I know God was working to get to me through my eldest sister, because my eldest sister is 6 years older than I am. So let's say, I'm guessing I was probably around 6 or 7 years old at the time of this incident. So she would have been 12 or 13 at the time. She and up until that point, I think she kind of like took me on as her own. She was old enough to really just sort of like take me everywhere with her. When she would go out and play, she'd take me with her or whatever. Um, and she really parented me for most of my life. I think she saw the need. And, like I joke with people, I have a picture of when I graduated, when I got my master's degree. I was 50 years, so I'm 50 years old. I'm getting my master's degree. I was so excited. And it's a picture of me and my mom's on one side and my sister, my eldest sister's on the other side. And my mom and I are smiling, but my sister looks so proud. She's
Wow.
just like beaming. And I just, it speaks volumes to what she did for me my whole life. She protected me. She took care of me. Um, yeah, like I feel like God really I mean, I know not everything's about me, but he gave me this beautiful person to look after me and care for me. And maybe he gave me to her too, because she doesn't have any children, so
Oh,
maybe I was her child, who knows?
is she still alive today? And you
Yes.
still
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
in touch?
yeah.
You must be best friends today. Eh?
Oh, yeah. She's the one I, will go to first with
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't worry. Today's show is about you, and we love you very much. And you are never a mistake. Why? Because here you are speaking to someone in Nairobi, Kenya, just for us to interact with the Word of God, play around with it, see what we can learn from it. And today you will teach us so many aspects of the kingdom of God. And we
Yes.
want to thank the life of your sister. What's her name, if you're allowed to mention here?
Her full name is Beatrice, but she goes by just B.
B. All
Just
right.
B.
We love you
B.
so much, Beatrice. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for taking care
Yeah.
of Miss Jessica.
Yes.
Why? Because of you, she's here. And God never leaves anyone alone because God touched her heart and she was able to be closer to you. So you are truly never alone all the way. And it was a reason for something, and here we are. We will learn something out of the whole journey. And we thank God for it. And the most important lesson here, which I want to take through the listeners, is you see, you have a father who was a minister of God, working at a church, a priest, a father, a religious person, holier than thou, and then throwing all kind of love and hugs and everyone in the ministry. And then when coming home, you are dealing with a totally different person. Today we will not judge your father because all of us do deal with issues. You understand? Once upon a time, you are an addict. All of us have come from the world to here, and most of us are not even able to finish, dealing with our past. Today, so in your case, your father here is alcoholic. The other person does really cheat on the wife. The other person does terrible thing to the children. All right. So we want to thank God at least you all came out in one piece. All right. And it's a calling upon the man that was being fought by the devil so much, because if he was able to do a good work in the church, then you can see he was being troubled enough so he can not continue that work. And most importantly, so that the devil makes sure that no one in his lineage will continue with God's work. But lo and behold, here we are. Thank God for your sister.
Yes.
So you are showing us something here that even if you have the gown and the white collar and the big Bible, right? There's still work that needs to be done inside.
Yes.
There's still
Yes.
deliverance that's needed. And I'm happy because when I'm talking to you, you seem to have understood and grasped that idea that it was not him, it was the
Yeah.
addiction that was speaking. It's an addiction is an addiction. It's an attack and attack. Today is cigarettes, might be alcoholism. The other person, if you hear cases in Africa, we won't even mention these cases because no family go, children even don't make it out. Here in Kenya,
Yeah.
I could mention cases where you find a father just came home and wiped out the entire family and
Yeah.
himself. You understand? So it's the devil in these ways in one way or another. And I'm truly happy about this today because we get to see that even if you are wearing that collar, even if you are, there are churches here, there's Anglican, there's Catholic, churches is churches, and you're talking about Jesus Christ. But even if you're wearing such and you find yourself with an addiction, please walk to God, talk to
Yes.
someone, let it be helped, and that's a lesson which today you give us, Miss Jessica, and I'm truly proud of your sister, and I'm truly proud of you as well. And you don't stop being a child because you're a child of God. So even if you want to get a PhD when you're 60, well and good. Take a picture and we'll be happy because today we are learning from your life, you understand, and
Yeah.
and we are very much grateful. So if you can tell us something now about you. You ended up, the devil came and attacked you, and you ended up in addiction, right? And you've mentioned that
Yes.
just briefly about it. What was your experience when you first? What happened that you ended up to the arms of Jesus Christ? What happened to that? If you were to tell us that story, because now we see why you ended up in addiction. I want to see how you came out of it, how God delivered. So people who are
Yes.
listening can see,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. I used and I didn't even know I was doing this because I just was using food to comfort myself from the
Okay.
time I was a very little girl,
Yeah.
and also alcohol. And I didn't even know that I was using alcohol. My mom made when we were little kids, she made a homemade cough syrup, and it had honey, lemon juice, and then some sort of, it was either whiskey or some sort of alcohol in it.
Yeah.
And I used to sneak it out of the refrigerator. Or pretend that I had a cough so that I could get some of it. Because I remember feeling it, like I remember feeling it going down and into my belly, and the warm feeling spreading out over my whole body. And it was like, oh, like I finally have like some sort of, it felt like an escape. And when I would eat food, it would, and any kind of food, like I would eat sugar right out of the bag. I mean, anything I could get my hands on, because we didn't have a lot, growing up either. My dad was a minister, my mom was a teacher. So we didn't have a lot of money. And so I would just take it wherever I could get it. And it was really all just dulling my senses, everything. And I didn't know that's what I was doing, but that's what I, kept doing. And then what happened over time, and this happens a lot, I started to try to control my weight because boys don't like girls who have too much beef on their bones, And so I wanted to find myself a husband so that I could get out of that family, right? And so I was going to the extremes of dieting, and the mental obsession with food just became, and dieting and calorie counting and fat grams and all that stuff. I exercised to the point of exhaustion. Like I just was, it was all over the map. I would gain, like, say 30 pounds, and then I would lose 20 pounds, and then I would gain 50, and then I would, and it was just back and forth and up and down. And the whole while I'm doing this, I'm also drinking. But what I'm telling myself is that I'm having a good time. My dad drank and he was a jerk. I'm just drinking to have fun. Like I would rationalize it in my head to make it okay. And so what happened over time, though, is that this turns into like a self-destructive type of behavior, and people didn't want to be around me anymore. I got to a point where I couldn't lose weight anymore. Like no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't. And I knew everything there was to know about how to eat properly, and I couldn't stop myself from overeating. I ended up being about 150 pounds overweight. I was twice the size that I am now, and I was drinking heavily. And a friend of mine, I got a new job, and I moved to a new place. And a friend at that new job, she and I kind of connected, and she happened to know a counselor that she thought could help me with, some of my family issues. Cause we used to commiserate about family issues. And so I went to this counselor, and I was seeing her, and I had been to counselors before a lot, because I was always trying to figure out, I was always seeking and trying to figure out, but I had left the church when I was like 18 years old. And so, I hadn't had any experience with the church anymore. And and so all these counselors kind of, I think they helped me to not kill myself, because I was in a really desperate state of depression, and thinking I was a mistake, and thinking maybe I should just take myself out. And I never did. I didn't do it there were two times when I almost did it. The first time I didn't do it when I was in high school because of my sister. I thought, if I do this, it's going to kill her. And I can't do this to her. And so I didn't then. And then the next time, I was thinking it was about a year before I met this counselor, and I was sitting in my living room, and I had nobody left in my life. My sister actually had come to me and said, I can't watch you do what you're doing in your life. She's like, I'm afraid for you. I'm not going to watch you do to yourself what our dad did to our family. And it was as hard as it was for her to say that. I'm sure it was really hard. It devastated me, because she was my everything, and she walked out of my apartment like, I'm not going to watch you do this. And so I was sitting in my apartment not long after that, and I was just thinking, how can I do this? How can I just be done with it? and I had the cat in the picture above my head. I had gotten her a couple years prior to this. She was my first pet. That was my pet as an adult, like she was my baby. And as I'm having these thoughts, I mean, I'm not saying anything out loud, it's just me, but I'm having these thoughts of killing myself. And this cat, she just walks into the room and she parks herself like right in the middle of the room and she's just staring at me. And I know that animals don't speak words. I know that, like I get it. But at the time, it felt like she said to me, "Who's going to take care of me if you do this?" And it took my breath away because I wasn't thinking about her. I was only thinking about myself, of course, totally self-absorbed. And, and I just went, and I thought to myself, I can't do this. I have to take, because then my pride got in there too, because even if I do it, no one's going to care for her the way I care for her, And so I literally was saved by my own pride, But the funny thing about it is that it took me about another year till I got into recovery, but I never again thought of doing it because I knew I had to care for this cat. You know, people, this is one of the reasons why when someone I know gets a pet, I'm so happy for them because, it's just it's a wonderful connection, and I do believe God used that cat that day, so anyway, I'm going to the counselor now, and she was trying to help me with my family issues. And she finally said to me, she said, "Jessica," she said, there's a lot that needs to be uncovered here in regards to your childhood. And I'd like to do that work with you. But until you get this food addiction under control, I don't see any of it taking hold because the food is in the way. It's in the way. You've got to. And she was well versed in addictions counseling. And she sent me to a recovery group. She said, "Would you be willing to do this?" And my father at that point had gone to recovery and he was sober for at that point, he was sober for about, I want to say about 4 years.
Wow.
And he was still kind of a jerk. So he had put the alcohol down, but he still was behaving kind of the same way, like with us, and, and so I thought, well, those recovery things don't work because I was thinking of him. And she said to me, "Why don't you just give it a try?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Just go once and then come back and tell me about it." And Samuel, that is when my life changed, when I walked into that first meeting. And I didn't know it that night. But again, this is one of those moments of clarity. I can picture that room and the women who were in that room that night as if they are sitting here with me right now. Almost every single one of them, three of them in particular, who I know Jesus used to talk to me that night. And I heard exactly what I needed to hear. I didn't want any part of it because part of recovery is you have to surrender your whole self. You have to let go of these addictions. It's not going to work any other way. You got to put the food down. You got to put the alcohol down. You got to, whatever your thing is, for some people it's gambling, or sex, or, you can be addicted to anything, and so you got to put the thing down. And then there's a whole bunch of work you have to do on yourself because the thing that you put down has been pushing down all this other stuff that you have not, like for me, basically, I was 29 years old, but I was acting like a 12-year-old in my life. And so I had my maturity stopped when I started using the substances. And so I had to become a grown up. And I had to learn how to live. And thankfully, the beauty of recovery is that the people who are helping you, they've been where you are when you walk in. They've been there. So they have no judgment. They're just like, "Yeah, I get it. This stinks. Let's do this thing, And at the time, if they had told me that I had to have a certain religion, or I had to believe in God, or I had to this or that, I would have run screaming away. I would have ran away from that. But they
Yes.
basically just said to me, they said, look, you have to have a power that's greater than yourself. We don't
Yes.
care who it is or what it is. You don't have to have mine. It's got to be yours, but it can't be you. You can't be the power that is giving you this relief from this addiction. And for me, in the very beginning, um, people use the word God when they're talking in recovery. My sponsor suggested that I think of it whenever anybody said the word God, because I really struggled with God. I thought he was pretty mad at me. So I didn't know how to reconcile that. And she said, whenever you hear somebody talk about God, think of the letters as all caps, God, and think of good, orderly direction, and make good, orderly direction your higher power. And that just means reaching out to somebody else, asking for help, not doing it yourself, not making decisions by yourself. And that all sounds pretty restrictive as I'm saying it now. But in the beginning, that's what I needed. I
Yes.
needed people to say, yeah, you're being a jerk. Or she even my first sponsor, she even trained me to start taking care of myself.
Wow.
It had been over 7 years since I'd been to the dentist or the doctor, or so she taught me how to do all that stuff, or I should say retaught me, because I already knew those things, but I wasn't doing them. So that's how I got there. That's how I got to the rooms.
My goodness. And there was which point did you get born again and decide that it is Jesus Christ? It is Jesus Christ and me and Jesus Christ.
Well, he came along with me all along. Interestingly enough, it was about let's see. I left the church when I went to college. So when I was 18, I never went back to church.
Yeah.
But I always still had like a really soft spot in my heart for Jesus. God was mad at me, but
Ah,
Jesus loved me. Like that's kind of how I saw it.
oh,
And it was about 2 years after college. So it was about 5 or 6 years before I got into recovery. And this is one of the things I talk about in one of my books, where I believe that we have to completely die to ourselves
yes.
in order to follow Jesus. And by that, I talk about how when people talk about the end of the world, or the way Jesus talked about the end of the world,
Yes.
or his second coming, perhaps he was being somewhat symbolic or speaking in metaphor, the way he often did.
Yes.
And he meant, I'm coming back for you.
Amen.
I'm coming back just for you. This is a personal end. And because what happened to me was, and I repressed this memory until and it didn't resurface until I was in seminary, and I was learning about the New Testament, and we were in the book of Revelation. And so we were talking about the end of things, the end of time. And
Yes.
I had this flashback to, uh, like I said, it was about 5 or 6 years before I got into recovery. I was at a party, and I had just gotten there, and it was freezing cold, kind of the way it is here now. There was snow on the ground. The sky, it was nighttime. The sky was absolutely clear. There were a million stars in the sky. And I went outside to smoke a cigarette, and nobody came with me because that's how cold it was. So I was standing out there by myself, and I was smoking this cigarette, and it was absolutely silent, absolutely silent. And I remember looking, and I'm out of college. My friends are all getting married. I don't even have a boyfriend. I'm working a temporary job that I don't like. Like I just hated my life. And I remember looking up at the sky and just like really kind of yelling at God, like, when is it going to be my turn? When do I get to have happiness in my life? I've been through all this crap and you just continually put me down. I was really, really mad at God. And in the middle of me yelling and everything, I went from cold, like freezing cold with a cigarette in my hand, to feeling this like blanket of warmth sort of pour over me. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional when I talk about this because I don't talk about it a lot. And I knew that Jesus was standing next to me.
Oh God.
Like I didn't turn and look, but I knew he was right there.
Yes.
Not just spiritually, his physical body was right there. And I knew that if I turned and looked at him, he would embrace me. And it terrified me. It went from warmth coming over me to terror. And I turned, I didn't even look at him. I turned and I ran back into the party because I was terrified. And I didn't put this all together until I was in seminary. The 6 years from that point until I got into recovery were an absolute living hell. They were the worst years of my life. It was when I was the most suicidal. I was absolutely alone, afraid all the time. Anxiety. It's what I call my own weeping and gnashing of teeth. Like I had looked at Jesus. Well, I didn't look at him. He showed up. He came back for me. And I went, nope, not going to do that. And I ran away from him. And that's where I see that what happened in that room that night when I went to my first meeting for recovery, and those women, the one woman, I'll never forget it. I was walking out and I wanted to get, like I said earlier, as much as I knew it was exactly what I needed, I wanted to get away from them because it was so scary, and she called my name. She said my name because at the beginning of the meeting, they asked if anybody was new. And I just said they said, could you just give us your first name? And so I had said my name. So she was coming after me and she called my name. And which surprised me because I was surprised that anybody knew my name because I had totally forgotten that part. And I turned and I looked at her and she looked right in my face. She looked right in my eyes. And I know today it was the eyes of Jesus looking at me. And she said, Jessica, please come back. Just please come back. That's all she said. She didn't, she knew I wanted to go because she knew she knew me because she was me. Yeah. And she just said, please come back. And Samuel, this is where the miracle happened. The following week, I did pretty much everything that they said during that meeting throughout that week. And it seemed pretty easy. Like, I got this, I can do this, I'm all, And I remember I was sitting there the following week. I was having my dinner and the meeting started about an hour from the point I'm talking about. And I thought in my head, you know what? I don't need to go back there. I know what I need to do. They gave me some good tips and I don't need to go back there. And then I heard a voice in my head, not audibly out loud, but in my head, the next voice that came in was, if you don't go back there, you're going to die. And I was like, oh. And I got up and I got ready and I went. And the rest is history. And where Jesus came in is all the while I'm doing that work with all these different people. He just kept showing up. I didn't know it at the time. This was not a bright white light spiritual experience. It was a spiritual awakening over time. And he kept pushing me to go to seminary. Yes. And I kept resisting it because that's what my dad did, and also because my husband was like, yeah, that's going to cost a lot of money. Like, so there were all these things coming in from the outside that were resisting it. And it took me I was 15 years clean before I actually went to seminary. And I didn't go because I wanted to become a minister. At that point, I didn't even know what spiritual direction was, but I just wanted to learn it. I wanted to learn for myself. Yeah. And so all the while that I was there, I was recognizing that I need to write this story. I need to write this story about his return to me and
Yes.
my resistance to him and how he never stopped knocking. He
Yes.
just kept knocking. And I had a beautiful woman in my early recovery who said to me, you know, God is a gentleman. He is not going to barge down your door and pull you out by your hair. He's going to knock politely and he's going to tell you he's there for you. He's not going to walk away. He's just going to keep knocking. And that's my experience, and I was just, I mean, my husband and I do go to church now. I've welcomed organized religion back into my life. Um, I that took a lot of time, because
Of course.
organized religion is run by people. Yeah. And so, you never, there's, and that the beautiful thing is that I've learned over all this time that ministers are just like everybody else.
Yeah, human beings.
They're human beings, they're called, and of course, yes, they need to set an example. That's part of why they're called. And my dad was called, I believe, at a very early age, and he didn't know what to do with it. And he came from a very addicted father and a very overbearing mother. And so, you know, he didn't really have anybody helping him either. And so this is the thing that I tell people a lot, that when you're in church and you're listening to your minister, it's wonderful to receive enlightenment from the things that they say, and it's always a good idea to go check it out for yourself.
Yes.
Pick up your own Bible and read your own Bible, or read a book that someone else wrote about that story, or whatever, because when you take just one person's word for it, you're not getting the whole story. That's
Yeah.
why there's four gospels.
Very
Yeah.
true. Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
And Miss Jessica, this story is amazing. And how can I put this? We are going to talk about your book just shortly, but I just want to mention it's like people like me. Let me just say people like us, or people like your father. And we always come from somewhere, a family, and you can see uh, the nature or the characteristics of your dad's family. You can see it replicating to his life. Then it goes, then it finishes. Then here you are walking with Jesus Christ, literally, because you've written a book and you've done so much in his kingdom. We would like to see how now you and your husband are playing your part of life and moving with it in a way that is different from the life of your mom and your father. So have you noticed any things that you've been able to change? Because right now we are thanking God you're not addicted. You're not addicted to anything. You are whole. You're looking very good. No one can even say that you used to smoke, drink. Your hair is long. You're very healthy, well read. You understand? You are actually a wife. You are a
Yeah.
household
Yeah.
person. You are a
Yeah.
person. You are known. You have a
Yeah.
name. But you see now, so if you can tell us your experience with your marriage right now with your husband, whether there are things you feel that have changed, because right now we are happy, your husband is not like your dad.
Right.
So what other things can you tell us that have now changed? Because we want to see where God has made a stop to these negative habits that your parents had, or your forefathers and your grandparents. But now
Yes.
here you are writing a new book. So show
Yes.
us something about you and your husband that your life is now better. If you want to mention about children, it's fine. But we want to see a face where your life has changed to the way it was with your parents,
Yeah.
because you understand. Now you are two, now you are looking forward. So how what has changed
Yes.
and what is
Yes.
new?
Yes.
Is it making
You
sense?
know what? I don't have any children. I will start
All
with
right.
that. I did
Okay.
decide very early on that I did not want. I figured the only way that I could break the cycle. This was back even before I was in recovery. I said to myself, I the only way I can break the cycle is by not having children, because I was really I knew I was a bad apple at that point when I was in my addictions, and I feared that I would harm my children the way that I had been harmed. Um, but here's the beautiful thing about that is that I feel like I have a lot of children in my life today, because I do work with a lot of women, a lot of them significantly younger than I am, who come into recovery, and I walk with them through the whole thing. And I get to be the mom that I wished that I had. I get to be the sisters, or the cousins, or the aunt, or whatever, that I wish that I would have had, when I was a little kid. I have three nieces and two nephews from my other two siblings, and I love being their aunt. I absolutely love it, because I think oftentimes one of my early counselors used to say to me, you can be the aunt that you never had, to
Ah,
these kids. And because I always think, wouldn't it have been great if I had an aunt who came along and like whisked me away,
yes.
or whatever. And so my one niece, my eldest niece, is getting married this June, and I'm so excited. She's 28 years old. I can't believe it. But I used to take her into New York City. Like, we would just either take a bus in, or we would drive in and take the ferry in, and we would just go to, like, a couple times we went to see Broadway shows, or we'd go to different museums or whatever, and just like spend the day together and make her know how special she was to me. And so those are the kinds of things that I was, and all those things were taught to me by other people in recovery,
Wow.
that they said, this is the way that you can sort of make amends to the world for
Yes.
your previous behavior, by now behaving in a very responsible. I could still be fun loving, and I could still be goofy, um, but also, just be this responsible grown up person who is also saying, what, yeah, Jesus is real. He loves you. And I will say that sometimes my family rolls their eyes a little bit when we're all together, because I am very excited about him, like I want to talk about him all the time, and not everybody does. um, but with my husband, to talk about that part of it, it's interesting. My husband and I met. We were actually set up on a date. He had been married twice before.
Right.
He's also a recovering person, and friends of ours that knew both of us, we didn't know each other. They said that our pickers were broken, because I had dated a bunch of guys who were, not
Yeah.
great for me, and he had had two marriages that failed. And so they said, we're going to pick for you, and they put us on a date together. And it hasn't always been, wonderful, and and all that kind of stuff. But what we've learned together over the years, and especially just most recently, is that you have to communicate with each other. You have
Yes.
to, no matter what is going on. My husband really struggles with the winter. I mean, this time of year, it darkens his mood. Like they call it seasonal affective disorder. Like, when the sun is not out enough, you don't get the vitamin D from the sun. It's an actual thing. And so, like, he'll come home from work. He's at work all day, and he'll come home from work, and he'll be like a little snippy with me. and then I'll say something to him, and he recognizes, oh wow, like. But before, in the earlier part of our marriage, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have taken it personally. You go down those because those are the roles my parents taught me growing up. And so we have had some help from my husband and I together have had help from counselors and different retreats we've gone on, where we recognize that neither one of us is perfect, and we love our pastor, who is, he and his wife are wonderful. And so we have other couples in our life who, help us along the way. It's just like anything else. When you try to do it by yourself, you're going to mess it up. And so it's always good to say, could you please help me? That's, I think, the most important thing, and that I would say to most people is, if you're trying to figure life out on your own, you're probably not going to make it. It's really important. And Jesus told us that. Get together, talk to, be in community, help each other, love your neighbor, I mean, he taught us all of this. It's very simple. We're the ones who complicate it.
Miss Jessica, as we go to talk about your book today, I love you guys so much, you and your husband, because of this wonderful story. And sometimes I can see, I see myself like, as time has gone, like the case with your dad. And then when I'm talking to you, we will record it, we will publish this video. Then I see my daughter. I have three kids, two daughters and one young boy. And I know in future, when they're all grown to your age, they will sit down and watch this video. And then I'm a person who's talking about the Bible. So my prayer today with all our listeners today is, if we are parents and we are serving God, that God will help us to, because we all come from a past, from a lineage, of some are violent, some are addictive, some have done things and the game here is always trying to live a life that is different from the parents, better, make it better. So our prayer today is God will help us to raise our children in a better way, not like we were raised by our parents. So that I don't sit here laughing with you yet. My daughter will see this in 20, 30 years from now and then say, look at this one, laughing like this story. And then he didn't do so and so and so. So this grace can only come from God. Because as you mentioned, at one point, your dad got, clean and all that, but still had some work to do. But you see, it can only come from God. And you only have to sit at one point, and you've taught us that you sat at one point and you made that decision and you say, no, now let me try and change. And you are alive today. And I'm telling the truth. If you didn't tell me about this story of your past, I wouldn't have known that once upon a time you are an addict. No.
I know.
Well spoken. No one, this is the power of Jesus Christ we are demonstrating to the listener, to look at you now and see the way you're talking, the way you're reasoning, and to just see the story that you're carrying behind. It's a past that is in the past, and here you are with your present. And may God truly bless you and your husband. To be honest, to be honest.
Thank
Now,
you.
tell us about your book, and you can mention what's the title, and tell us what to expect inside and where to find it. Because I know the person listening to this episode will want to buy it for the glory of
Well,
God.
thank you for that. I actually have two books out right now, and I have a third one coming out later in the spring, which I'm really excited about. Um, there, you can find everything you want to find out about me on my website, which is it's really easy. It's my name with my middle initial. It's jessicalmorris.com. There's information there about my books. There's information about what spiritual direction is, if you're interested in that. And I also have a blog there where I post poetry and different things that I write about, and so you can follow that as well. My books are the first one was it's a daily meditation book. It's just morning meditations to cultivate faith, love, and service.
Yeah.
And then the second one that I was talking about, it's called Higher Powered. And that one that's kind of, if I say I have any children, that would be my child. That's the baby
Yes.
that I gave birth to.
Yes.
I worked on that for probably about 3 years when I was in seminary, and it really it's kind of a memoir, but it's my walk with Jesus. It's my walk with awakening to awakening to my surrender to Him.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's like it was my story and how I recognized I had to let go of everything that I thought was important about me
Yes.
in order to truly follow Him
Yes.
and to truly be able to become the person that I was created to be, because I was created to be
Yes.
here,
Yes.
and so that's what that one's about. That one's a little bit more academic because I wrote it actually was birthed out of my master's thesis that I did in my final year there. And so after I graduated, I knew there was more to say. And so I turned it into a book. And so that's where you can find those things.
And the third one,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and
That
the third book.
Oh, the third one that's coming
Yeah.
out. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
see, I forgot about it. It's the third one that's coming out is actually in the production stages right now. They're working on like title page and all that stuff and graphics, all that stuff that's way
Yes.
outside of my purview. That one's going to be called Sunbathing, SON bathing,
Yeah.
and it's basking in the Word of God, and
Wow.
it's things that Jesus said. It's kind
Yes.
of like an interactive journal. It's things Jesus said, and then I give my interpretation of that thing that he said, and then I offer space for the reader to interact with the verse.
Yes.
So either I offer a writing prompt or a prayer prompt or
Yes. Very good.
meditation or study. And
Yes.
so and then I offer some space for them to write or whatever. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that one because that's one of the things that seminary really taught me was, you've got to dive into the scripture yourself. Just listening to what someone else said, it's not enough. You have to have your own personal experience with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which will take us to the next question here. And for the listeners who are listening to us, I will put in the description Miss Jessica Morris's website. And inside the website, you'll get all the details, the blogs, the books, and everything therein. And no worries about that. And the title of this episode will be Higher Powered, just as the book is called. Now, to
Yes.
our last question. And how do you read your Bible from one Sunday to another?
Ah, a lot. I read it a lot. It's changed over time and it's morphed over time. But one of the things that I get up very early in the morning before the sun is even up. I get up at about 4 o'clock in the morning because I want to have really, really quiet time where it's just me and God. My husband leaves for work at 5, so he's getting ready to go, and then he's out the door, and I take a couple hours where I'm with the Word, and sometimes that's me opening my Bible and just reading. Sometimes I'm reading something else that leads me to it. Like there's a cat, and it's coming from all different places, and this I think is important. I I for a long time I thought I had to have a certain denomination. I thought I had to be either a Methodist or I had to be a Catholic or I had to, like I had to do. And now I take from everywhere. And now, of course, my husband and I do go to a Protestant church, but I read I have a dear friend who is becoming a Carmelite nun, and she sent me a copy. She gave me a copy of her book that she's reading to help her with her scripture learning. And so sometimes I pick that up, or sometimes I have an Orthodox study Bible, and sometimes I'll pick that up and I'll just read the footnotes. And so it's me interacting with the word, learning the history is important as well, because sometimes when you don't know, where Jesus came from, it's hard to understand what he's saying. So it's important
Yes.
to understand that he grew up Jewish, and what were the Jewish traditions, like that's not something that a lot of people know. And so, I'm also doing, I will say this, I'm doing a Bible study with some of my recovery people on the television show, The Chosen. Have you heard of The Chosen?
I only know of the chosen kids, maybe, but that's the
Oh,
show.
okay, okay. Yes, yes. Well, the show, you would love the show. It's wonderful. And so I'm taking that and making it into a Bible study to work with
Wow.
others to help them to understand. And one of the things I love about that show is they're showing all of the Jewish heritage. So you're getting to understand why Jesus said certain things, and why that made sense then, and why we might go, wait, what was he talking about? you know so it's really just, I believe it's really about diving in and allowing God to guide my journey each morning. Like, I don't have to have anything specifically set up, just letting him take me into the word.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, as we come to the end of this episode, I'd really like to thank you, Miss Jessica Morris, and I want to reiterate this part of this episode, that today our solemn prayer is, may God help us to be better parents than our parents. All right. Let us just not show teeth in the public, then at home it is a different story. It's difficult, Accept that it is difficult, but it's only God who can help us to be better parents. I just feel as if I am talking to my daughter in the future. You understand? I don't know how to explain it, but it's the same way. And if we could go back in time and I'm seated here with looking at you in your younger self, I'd change that and say, no, you are never a mistake, because by the time you are breathing, there's a lot for you to roll around in this earth. By the time you are seeing the sun, that thing that is shining there, every day you wake up, you see it. If you saw it, then it doesn't matter whatever anyone told you. The person who has put it there, the person giving it the air, determines where you're going and how long. So no one can really tell you that you are a mistake. If
Yes.
you are a mistake, they would have even tried to kill you. But you see, those are just words from the devil trying to interfere with your life, to interfere with your life ever getting children and all that, trying to tell you that negative things. But here you are, because Jesus Christ died on that cross and he rose again. And here you are with a master's degree. You're very smart. I tell you the truth again, I could never have thought you are an addict. This is just a miracle. This, when I look at you, and this is to the listeners who have relatives who are already addicted to whatever thing, it's possible to have a turnaround. It's so much possible. We have seen cases. My dad was an addict at one point, you understand, but he never turned around. But when I look at you, I see it's possible. It's amazing. So you are a walking miracle. And this is why the devil was fighting you so much, so that you cannot inspire other addicts and all that. But here you are, it's amazing. I want to reiterate again. You don't look like the way you are talking. You see, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. But anyway, that's our prayer today. So please believe that you have a mission here on earth for those people who are addicted, and you are doing a great job. You are never a mistake, and no one is a mistake. If you are listening to us, God has business with you. You have unfinished business here. You're not a
Yes.
mistake. And
Yes.
I think that's all. And to my children, if you listen to this, I know they are young today. If you listen to this episode in 10, 20 years, just know that I love you very much. I will always try my best to be a very good parent today. All right. No matter how time will go on like this, like this, like this, I will love you very much. And you are never a mistake because you are here listening to me. All right. And to those who don't have fathers, and to those who don't have mothers, and to those who are being told that they were a mistake, abandoned, orphaned, no, you are still breathing air that you're not buying. So
Right.
you have a duty to the person giving you that free air, and that is God, to be loved.
Yes.
So God loves you very much, and you are not a mistake. You have things to do here on earth. You just find your own purpose. Like me,
Yes.
here I am teaching the Bible for free. You might be an electrician. You might do. The kingdom of God is vast. Just know where to plug in. But please, you're not a mistake. Let the devil not teach you that bad thing. Anyway, that's the end of this wonderful episode. Mr. Jessica Morris, thank you so much for being such a. I hope now you have seen why you are alive and why you're not a mistake.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll just put one last thing on that. I will just say that, if someone is out there listening to this and they do feel that they are a mistake or someone told them that, or, whatever the case may be, know that, the other piece of this that I didn't really talk about that much is that God has always put male influences in my life that were
Yes,
positive as well.
yes,
And it may have been very brief, like a teacher or a softball coach, or, like it was, but there was always somebody who showed me what it really was to
yes,
be a dad, to be a
yes,
father figure. And so but you've got to look for it. You've got to look for it. And, a lot of those people like me don't have children, and their opportunity to be a parent is someone just like you. And so you never know what you're also offering to another person just by asking them for help.
wonderful. Now,
Yeah,
I hope you see how important this episode was.
absolutely.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. May God truly bless you. Thank you
God
so much.
bless you, Samuel. Thank you.
I have no other words to add to the thank you. I'm
Thank
just
you.
happy today. This is an important message to a lot of people, and that
Thank you.
marks the end of this wonderful episode. May God truly bless you. May God truly bless you. Amen.
God
To
bless
the
you.
listeners, we are continuing in the book of Leviticus. We just finalized chapter, I think, 15. We will rush through 16 all the way to the end as fast as we can. We want to rush it very fast because many of you need to learn it for free. For free. You need to learn it for free. Now, when you listen to this episode, you understand why. All right. So, see you guys on the next one. We love you so much.